The European Central Bank is currently building a system where every single euro you spend can be tracked, traced, and linked to your identity. Not at some point, not in theory. The legislation is being formulated right now, in the year 2026. At the same time, the EU is setting up a central register that records what you own. So your house, your savings, your car, your investments. And from July 27, even that will be limited. How much cash you are even allowed to use at all. Most people haven't even connected these three things yet. But when you think about them together, you understand very, very quickly why the way most people handle money today could become a real risk to their own financial freedom. And above all, you understand what you can still do now. Importantly, this is not a doomsday video. There is a way you can restructure the flow of your money so that your everyday expenses actually work for you, instead of feeding a system designed to monitor you and gradually devalue your assets. First of all, everything I'm showing you now is based on official EU documents, the European Parliament, established media, and academic analyses. No conspiracy theories, just politics, just developments that are already underway. Let's look at cash first. From July 27, a cash limit of 10,000 euros will apply in the EU. For the first time ever, also in Germany. Any cash payment above that will become illegal. And from as little as 3,000 euros, the seller must verify your identity. And now think for a moment about what cash actually is. Cash is the last form of money where the transaction really only takes place between you and the other person. No log, no database, no third-party watching. Exactly this form of freedom is now being limited. In parallel, the EU is setting up a central asset register. If you own assets worth over 200,000 euros, such as real estate, savings deposits, company shares, valuable cars, or art, then all of this is to be recorded in a central database managed by AMLA, the new anti-money laundering authority in Frankfurt. And access to it should not only be given to the tax office, but also to persons with a so-called legitimate interest, including certain journalists and civil society organizations. The EU has already published a feasibility study on this. The infrastructure is being built. This is not just some loose thought experiment. This is an existing real-world project. And now comes the element that connects everything together. The digital euro. The ECB says it complements cash. But if you take a closer look at what analysts, data protection experts, and parliamentarians have to say about it, a very different picture emerges. The Wirtschaftswoche calls the digital euro a poisoned apple. The core of the criticism. It concentrates monetary power, weakens financial privacy, and gives the state a new level of control over spending. The European Data Protection Supervisor warned that such a system could identify and track transactions. And this is exactly where it becomes relevant for every individual. It's not just about surveillance. It's about the technical possibility of making money programmable, meaning theoretically determining what you can buy, how long your money remains valid, or in which category you're allowed to spend it. Several economists and analysts have pointed out exactly this risk. Because when money is fully digital, centralized, controllable, and tied to identity, its function changes. It is no longer just a neutral medium of exchange. It can become an instrument of control. And that's particularly noteworthy when you look at what other countries are doing. Even the US has looked into CBDCs and has taken a very, very critical stance. Europe, on the other hand, is heading in the opposite direction. Questions about the double risk have also already been raised within the European Parliament. On one hand, financial stability, on the other, the loss of privacy. Even from within the parliamentary circles themselves, statements were made that the digital euro might not actually solve any of the major problems. And what does the public think? According to surveys, more than half of Europeans say they probably wouldn't use the digital euro at all. Nevertheless, work on it continues. And that's exactly the point. When you take these developments together, a clear picture emerges. Cash is being restricted, assets are being registered, and at the same time, a new form of money is being built where every transaction is potentially traceable and the technical infrastructure exists to control behavior. And this is exactly where a term becomes important: mission creep, meaning the gradual expansion of control. Initially, something is introduced with good intentions, with promises of data protection security. But as soon as the infrastructure is in place, the boundaries are shifted bit by bit. With the justification of terrorism, crime, or tax evasion, that's how it almost always goes. While this control infrastructure is being built, a second thing is happening at the same time. Something that devalues your money every single day, namely inflation. The euro has lost a significant part of its purchasing power since its introduction. If you just leave money in your account, the balance might look the same, but its real purchasing power drops. You feel it in everyday life when shopping, renting, for services, practically everything. In the last few years alone, savers have had to accept massive losses in purchasing power. And that's exactly what's so insidious about it. It doesn't feel like a direct tax, but in fact, it's a creeping devaluation. Your bank might give you minimal interest. But if inflation is higher than what your money earns in your account, then you lose in real terms. Wealth every single day. Not visible, but measurable. That's why some observers speak of creeping expropriation. Not because someone is openly taking your money, but because your wealth is in a system that is simultaneously monitored and devalued. And at this exact point, you just have to start rethinking. When cash is restricted, bank balances lose purchasing power, assets are registered, and new digital money structures are built, then the crucial question is no longer just how much money you have. The crucial question is which system your money flows through. Because that's exactly where dependency or leverage is created. And this is where digital assets come into play. Cryptos. Not as speculation, but as infrastructure. Decentralized systems that no single authority can freeze, monitor, or reprogram. That is the fundamental shift. Away from a monetary system where the rules can be changed against you at any time, towards one where the rules are in the code and no one can change them unilaterally. That's what blockchain was built for. And then you just need the ability to spend your cryptos everywhere, to integrate them into your daily life wherever you are, anywhere in the world. And for that, I use ToonPay. You can find the link in the description. ToonPay is a payment app with a reward system built into everyday spending. You don't change your lifestyle. You buy groceries, pay, subscriptions, gas, the same things as now. But instead of that money or / crypto just being spent, the system gives you a percentage back as cashback. Up to 15% depending on the level. And these rewards, these bonuses, they don't just sit there unused. They can continue to work through an automatic mechanism. This means your normal everyday expenses don't just create consumption, but ideally a position that keeps working for you in the background. When you put that into context, it gets exciting. While your bank account loses real purchasing power, while governments limit your cash, while wealth registers are being built and digital central bank currencies are being discussed, a model is emerging here where everyday payments are redirected into a system that is intended to generate returns instead of just costs. That is the actual shift in perspective. Not just spending money, but structuring the flow of money in such a way that it generates a counter value. And why is that relevant right now? Because all these developments aren't coming sometime in the future, they are already underway. The cash limits have already been decided. The wealth registers are currently being built. The legislation surrounding the digital euro is being created now. And although a large part of the population is skeptical, the process simply continues. This means the window of time in which you realign your financial structure or can realign it is open right now. And such windows never stay open permanently. Those who wait too long usually only wake up when the infrastructure is already fully in place. Therefore, my suggestion, you don't have to believe everything I say. On the contrary, check everything for yourself. Read the critical reports on the digital euro. Look at the analyses of the surveillance potential. Read what data protection experts, economists, and parliamentarians have to say about it. Look at the official questions that have already been put to the ECB, and then ask yourself an honest question. Does my current setup of bank account, savings, deposits, and cash really still protect my financial freedom, meaning yours? Or am I sitting in a system that is currently being rebuilt around me step by step? If you want to test a different approach, then take a look at the free starter card. Link is in the description. 2 minutes and you are active. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.